Welcome to the Plan Solutions Incorporated podcast, where we give facts and insight on the latest happenings in the world of economics, financial markets, and personal finance. Plan Solutions provides advice on a variety of financial topics, including investment management, tax preparation and planning, and retirement planning. Chase has 25 years of experience in the financial industry, holds a certified financial planner and chartered financial analyst designations, and has earned a master's degree in taxation and a doctorate in business administration. Chase has a passion for helping clients down the path toward their financial goals. And I'm Jason LaChance, and on this episode, we're going to discuss Institution for Supply Management reports. We're going to take a look at private fiduciaries. Also, we'll give you a Social Security update, and we'll visit the Plan Solutions Incorporated office bulletin board. Mr. Armour, how are you, good sir?
Well, it's a cold and rainy day in Northern California. We've got one of those atmospheric rivers or whatever coming through. So, yeah, it's going to be an indoor weekend, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I was gonna get out at the golf, get out to the driving range, work on the things that we did at the Plan Solutions charity golf tournament, and that really kind of seemed to help at the end of the round there. And the weather's had the other plans because I'm in Central California, so I think you've sent it down to us, and I love the atmospheric river. It's like we got a little bit of sprinkling, but it's definitely not outdoor weather either.
Yep. It's that time of year again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, let's dive on in. Institution for Supply Management reports. What is the Institution for Supply Management? These reports, and I know why we're touching on them, but it is very valuable, especially with the government shutdown coming to an end. So, how economists and financial analysts had to depend on these private sources during this time.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the Institution for Supply Management is a private organization that, really generates a lot of reports on a lot of different topics, but they've become famous for their manufacturing and what they call non-manufacturing, which is basically the services sector. These reports that they send out that kind of give some insight into, how people are feeling, what's happening in these different sectors. And as we've talked about in the past, survey data has become somewhat less reliable over the last decade or so. But with the government shutdown and very limited public information or quantitative information coming through, really we just happen to take what we can get, right? Which is, some of the private data and more likely focused around like survey type data.
Yeah, well, moving forward, we'll just shorten it to ISM, so that we'll use that acronym here just to make it quick, and so we are looping in the listener on what it is. But the ISM reports, they cover several categories within each sector. What kind of are those, and how do they do their metrics?
Yeah, that's the thing. So they have kind of an interesting way. Basically, a reading of 50 means no change, right? So that's kind of right in the middle, and then anything higher than that is denoting growth. Anything lower is contraction. The higher it is, the greater the growth rate. The lower, the greater the contraction. So you have to keep that in mind when looking at their metrics. But in terms of what we're seeing in October, the manufacturing report came in at 48.7. Right, which is down even a little from 49.1 the prior month. So obviously that being below 50, it means overall we've seen a contraction in the pace of manufacturing activity and that it's accelerated a bit from September to October. But the new orders index improved from 48.9 in September to 49.4 in October. And the new orders is typically the forward-looking indicator, right? That's giving you an idea of where things are going. So, we've seen the new orders are still contracting, but at a slower pace. So maybe some improvement in that trend, but the overall manufacturing sector contracting at a little bit faster pace. And similarly, the backlog of orders, which kind of is the backward looking, right? The orders that have come in that they haven't yet been able to fill, that indicator improved from 46.2 in September to 47.9 in October. So it's showing that the backlogs, uh, that basically they're still in contraction, right? So, uh, if you kind of looked at the whole picture, you'd say, okay, manufacturing is slightly contracting, right? So a slightly negative report. As we look forward, we see, okay, maybe there's some improvement. And as we look backward, we see, okay, um, kind of the trough or the negative period that improvement's coming off of. So the trend does seem for some improvement, but overall not real positive. And part of that may be driven by the prices index.
Mm.
So it decreased from roughly 62 to 58, right? So again, the pace at which prices are increasing has slowed a bit, but still that, 58 is well above 50. So that shows that, they are reporting higher prices. And, as we've talked about, this might be the one place where we're seeing the potential impacts of tariffs being quantified. We haven't really seen it flow through in the official inflation data, but here in terms of the survey data, manufacturers are reporting that they're seeing prices go up and go up at a historically pretty high rate.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and with that said, do these reports from the ISM also do any calculations around then how it's affecting demand? Or is it pretty much built into their matrix? Because it is really unusual. We would have a number, you go, oh, 46, and then it went to 48. Well, things are improving. No, 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 no. They're not really like, oh, okay. So it's a bit of a different way that you have to extrapolate the data.
Yeah, yeah. It's that things are bad but less bad, right? It's kind of the way to look at it in terms of how people are feeling. I mean, demand really it would be measured from new orders. You have to
Mm,
remember like these reports specifically. I mean, going back started around providing just broad information for manufacturers. So it's more,
gotcha.
centered around their business. Less focus on necessarily the health of the end consumer, but rather the status of the manufacturing sector of the economy.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. What are we seeing as far as the service sector? Similar story, different story?
Yeah, different stories. So the service sector headline index, it improved from 50 in September, so basically no change, to 52.4 in October. So that means the service sector has returned to growth after reporting no growth in September. New orders category improved quite a bit. So it went from 50.4 in September, so very little, improvement in new orders, to 56.2 in October. So, quite the acceleration of kind of future expected activity there. But then we also see the same thing with prices. Prices remain high. The price index increased from 69.4 to 70, which is a really high number. And that marks the 101st consecutive months in which the services prices were reported over 50. So, clearly seeing kind of a mixed bag, right? The manufacturing sector appears to be struggling a little bit. The services sector appears to be quite strong. Given that the services sector is much larger than the manufacturing sector within the U.S. economy, you could say it's probably as a whole marginally positive for the U.S. economy. But the price indexes is the really interesting thing. I mean, seemingly showing a lot of inflationary pressures, right?
Mm.
And because these are surveys from the businesses reporting back, I mean, it seems they're reporting that they're paying higher prices. We haven't necessarily seen those passed on to consumers. So as we've talked about, is it going to occur with a lag? Is there plan to increase prices, very slowly pass those on to consumers to not kind of upset business relationships or cause a big drop in demand? Or maybe is it that they're seeing increased prices in certain areas, but able to offset it by reducing other costs or things. That
Sure.
all remains to be seen.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting time. And as you stated near the top of our conversation around this topic, these reports, Kirst, are based on survey data, which has proven to be decreasingly reliable over the past decade. So while these were the only reports we're getting with the shutdown happening, the economic data, there is still some limitations around this. So, using it as an indicator, but yet taking it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, exactly. And basically, like I said, if you kind of parse it all out, it's mildly positive, right? So,
Right.
yeah, it's not the breadth of data that we would like to have to be gauging the economy, but at least we're not, in a situation where we have limited data and it's showing like very negative indications, right? Then you'd be wondering, okay, is it just this data source? I'd love to have some confirmation from other sources. How could I get that? That would be pretty stressful. At least at this point, it seems to be signaling, slow but steady growth. So you don't have to be as worried that maybe the economy is slowing and we're having a hard time diagnosing it or picking up on it because of the lack of available data.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump to private fiduciaries. The use of private fiduciaries has become more and more common in the recent years, and we've touched on this a little bit, but not as in depth here that you lay out. I think when I've thought of private fiduciaries, I didn't think of it as far as managing a portfolio as far as taking over when it comes to estate planning.
Yeah, it can be a number of different things. This was actually an article that was requested by a client who said, it was just an area they were interested in, and they think that not enough people know about this option, right? And they were in a common situation where they were putting off creating an estate plan because they just didn't know who to task with those important jobs, right? Who will manage the finances, pay the bills, taxes, who will, oversee the investments should they become incapacitated and can't do it themselves? Who do they trust with that? It also can, in some cases, include who's going to make important medical decisions. If you're incapacitated, maybe you don't have family that could do it, or maybe they're not, within the kind of geographic region, so it would be difficult. And a lot of times that, may not be the same person too, right? That you're thinking, okay, this person has some expertise on medical care and things. This person has expertise in finances, but how do we coordinate these different things? And that's totally understandable. You want to be very cautious when appointing a trustee, power of attorney, healthcare agent, because obviously those decisions can have major implications, especially if they don't do the job well, or they neglect it, or maybe they just don't want to take it on. Right. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people don't have the time to dedicate to the job. They may not be financially savvy or knowledgeable about medical issues, and or you could have family dynamics, right? Maybe
Mhm.
you have someone that would fit the bill, but they don't get along with all the beneficiaries or some of the other people that they would have to work with in order to settle an estate or care for someone, make sure someone who's incapacitated is cared for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why this is important to bring up because we're looking at the alternative option for that. I mean, you presented so many of those varying factors. It yeah, can be a real big challenge around these types of situations. So, how does the fiduciary play that role then?
Yeah, so that's what a lot of people don't realize is there are people that do this as their profession, right? They act as a private fiduciary, and they can take over all or some of those previously listed roles, depending on what is needed. And they can be very valuable. I mean, these people are knowledgeable. They know about the issues that arise with aging, health, death, settling estates, and all those. Procedures and steps that need to be taken. And generally, the good ones are very good at looking after their clients' interests, and that's really their focus. They're outside of any family dynamics that may create problems. And as I often say, hey, if a lot of times if let's say you have siblings and one of them is named as the trustee and they're in charge, it can create friction, right? And it
Yeah.
can create problems and sometimes explode into a big fight. With a private fiduciary, they may be making the best decisions, but if the beneficiaries don't like it, they can become their consolidated. They can come together in their hatred of the private fiduciary that's not doing things the way that they want. So it can help to keep that together. And of course, the private fiduciary, they're not worried about not getting invited to Thanksgiving, right? So they're willing to make those tough decisions when they need to be made. That's in the best interest of their client, even when you know basically their focus is to follow the client's wishes or the decedent's wishes if they've passed. Use what's called substituted judgment, right? Make decisions based on what they think their client would want, and they don't have the challenges that can come from those sometimes difficult family dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to add before we jump to Social Security updates?
Well, I think this is just one of those things with a private fiduciary that it's at least worth exploring, right? I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, no, no, I would never do that." Well, you can go meet with one and kind of talk through what this would mean, and there's no obligation. When you're up your estate plan, you don't need to add them as a trustee or decide to work with them, or you could decide that you'll add them, but also have a trusted family member or friend that'll oversee things, right? That'll work with them. But yeah, I just think it's one of those areas where people are either not aware of it as an option, or if they have been made aware of it, they just dismiss it out of hand very quickly without really stop to think it all through and say, oh yeah, there might actually be a role here that could make those aging and transition issues and things much easier.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a look at Social Security updates. The Social Security Administration recently announced that the Social Security Cost of Living Adjustment, or COLA, for 2026 will be 2.8%. So what does this mean for Social Security recipients? When will they see the increase, and so on?
Yeah, so as we talked about in the last podcast, right? They made an exception and kept a portion of the Bureau of Labor Statistics open so they could get that consumer price index report that was needed so that they could stay on track in terms of announcing the Social Security cost of living. So basically, in essence, what it's saying, the way they calculate inflation, that cost of living went up 2.8% over the last year. So starting, benefits starting after January 1st, 2026, people will see, a small increase, right, of 2.8%. For the average person, it's not going to be huge. The average Social Security benefit is about $2,000 per month. So a 28% increase would mean the average recipient would receive another $56 a month. So yeah, not life-changing money, but at least, helping to keep up with the increased cost of living that we've seen, so that, hopefully people aren't going backwards in terms of affordability.
Yeah, well, I mean, that example is a sign that very few recipients will actually see their take-home amount really increase all that much for 2026. What are some of the reasons behind that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so, $56 per month is not a lot. And then in some cases, it'll be even less than that because Medicare premiums, which usually are deducted from people's Social Security benefits, those are increasing by 11.6%.
Right.
So given that, the lowest tier cost of Medicare Part B is $185 per month in 2025, an 11.6% increase would be $21 a month. So for the average person, they see, their income go up $56, but then their deductions are going to go up $21. Someone who's getting less than 2,000, right? The increase in their Social Security is going to be much less than a dollar amount, but the Medicare is still going to see that $21 increase. So people with fairly modest Social Security benefits could see, very little change in their actual take home. Whereas someone who's receiving the max benefit, they would see a bigger increase because the overall percentage increase of their benefit would be more than the $56, in some cases quite a bit more, but they'd still only see the $21 per month increase in Medicare costs.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at the bulletin board. We got two items pinned up there. The first one, Daryl, Carter, and Matt recently attended a pension and 401k seminar hosted by the local third-party administrator. What happened there? What did they learn around, and what did they bring back to the office?
Yeah, so a third party administrator is basically their job is to establish and maintain company retirement plans, especially the more complex ones like pensions, 401ks, things like that. And they do these annual meetings that one is I think it's just kind of partly marketing, right? They want to get in front of financial planners so that if we have a client where setting up a retirement plan for their business would make sense, we may have someone to introduce them to if they're in need of a third party administrator services. But the way they get people in the door is with education, right? They put on this annual kind of education seminar on all the rules and just making sure that we're all up to date on the numbers and changes. Although from what I understand, there has not been a lot of changes to retirement plans for once, right? After we went through the Secure Act, 1.0, the Secure Act 2.0, all of those changes, they're finally giving us a break. So not a lot of changes, but it was, great opportunity for Matt and Carter who, coming out of college, kind of understand some of the basics of these retirement plans, but, not a lot of the details and how it may operate in practice. So it was a great opportunity to take advantage of that educational seminar for especially the young guys that are still building out their tool chest, if you will, as they go forward and help clients with the variety of needs, which may include need for a retirement plan for a business.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. What's the second item we have pinned up there?
Well, the second one, just kind of a milestone that the newsletters sat down and was working on it and realized this is the 400th newsletter that Plan Solutions has produced since we started publishing our own newsletter in-house about 15 years ago. So, every 2 weeks, like clockwork, 26 of them a year. It kind of goes slowly, but then you turn around and you look back and say, wow, we've written and published 400 of these, and, we'll continue on. 500 will be around the corner in 4 more years. But just thought it was a good time to just kind of, put out to clients or people that are reading the newsletter, if you're enjoying the newsletter, if you have some feedback, any way we can improve it, it's always good when you get these periods, kind of like New Year's, right? When you take stock of the year behind you and make plans for the year going forward. Whenever you have kind of these big round numbers or these milestones, it's a good time to kind of level set and ask, for advice, feedback, anything that people may have that they think we could do better.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah, that's exciting news. And, we're just over 10 years around with the podcast, some 200, I think, 70 episodes around this point. And I love to hear, like, for instance, around the private fiduciaries topic where it was, a client of Plan Solutions bringing that topic forward because then it allows us to discuss and meet a question a little further. So, it's just a cool part of what Plan Solution does and just offers to put this information out there. So it's awesome to hear. I definitely have enjoyed it for the 15 years that it's been going, and definitely enjoy being a part of it and doing the podcast with you and a few of the other team members there over the years hopping in as well.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a great point. It's great getting feedback from clients. Otherwise we're kind of trying to think about what we think, may be interesting. But when you hear it directly, I think, if 1 or 2 clients are thinking it, there's probably, at least several dozen, that didn't speak up, but we're thinking, oh, that, it'd be interesting to learn more about that or that may benefit from it.
Absolutely. And if people want to give some sort of feedback, maybe if it's by email, easier to email Katie or Shannon.
Yeah. Email Katie, or if they get the newsletter, respond to the newsletter. That would go to Caitlin, or of course they can always reach out directly to me.
All right. Well, we thank you for listening to the Plan Solutions podcast. If it's your first time, hit that follow button on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Leave a rating or a review. And please share it with someone else that you might think get value out of it. And if you have yet to subscribe to the Personal Financial Review, the written content that we discuss here on the podcast, send Katie an email, katie@plansolutions.com, and get subscribed today.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell any securities. The information may not be current, and Plan Solutions has no obligation to provide an updates or changes. Plan Solutions does not make any representation or warranty as to the accuracy or completeness of the statements or any information contained in this podcast or any liability therefore, including in respect of direct, indirect, or consequential loss or damage, is expressly disclaimed. Plan Solutions is not providing any financial, economic, legal, accounting, or tax advice in this podcast. In addition, the receipt of this podcast by any listener is not to be taken as constituting the giving of investment advice by any Plan Solutions associate or individual to that listener, nor to constitute such person a client of Plan Solutions. Any reference to a specific company or security does not constitute a recommendation to buy, sell, hold, or directly invest in the company or its securities. Market indexes are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All price references and market forecasts correspond to the date of this podcast.
Plan Solutions is a registered investment advisory firm.